Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today will be my full review of the Kershaw Federalist. And this is a bit of an odd knife, certainly an odd knife for me. It's non-locking. All right, it's a little on the smaller side. It's not really, really small, but it's certainly not what I would consider to be, like a huge knife. And the other thing I have to say about this is, out of all of the Kershaw lineup for this year, this is the only one that I found really that compelling. The rest, I was kind of like, yeah, I could take it or leave it. And so, I've been fortunate enough to get my hands on this one, and I have to say, I actually do like this quite a bit. Now, it's a big departure for me. It's non-locking. It's definitely slim, and not what I would consider sort of an overbuilt type of knife, but nonetheless, pretty attractive. And can I just say to start off here, if anyone from Kershaw is ever watching this, a locking Federalist with a 3.5 inch blade would be very, very welcome, and perhaps a couple other changes along the way as well. Anyway, this one 7 9/16 overall. Okay, 3.25 inches on the blade length there. 4 5/16 close. So this is a pretty small knife to fit in your pocket. 3 3/8 inch grip area, which is not bad. All right, and I have to say, for a small lightweight folder like this is only 2.1 ounces. In terms of how much blade you get, and in terms of how much sort of handle length and grip area you get, it's not that bad. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm drawn to this, along with the other thing, which is I think it's a beautiful design. And I also think the blade in 154 cm steel is a huge win. So those are the things that sort of drew me to the knife. I touched on most of that stuff in the first impressions, and I want to get into a little more detail. So let's go ahead and get started with this US made Kershaw. So this blade is 154 cm. You can see it's a full flat ground clip point, fairly thin blade stock. In fact, quite thin, and that means this slices like crazy. This is really, really a nice slicer, and that does reveal sort of the design sort of notions, I guess, for this knife. Like, this is a very thin, light, slight type of knife. This is not, a cold steel Voyager. This is sort of the opposite end of the spectrum, maybe more like a Benchmade bug out or something like that. So we've got a blade that I think works for that design quite well. All right. Not super confidence inspiring. Like, you can feel that detent breaks pretty easy. There's a little bit of movement I can feel in the blade. But again, it's kind of the nature of this knife to be very light use, very, very, there's a little bit of flex that I can feel in the whole handle overall. All right. So that kind of brings us to the next point, which is the action on this. And the way they've done this is, I think I called it a slip joint at the beginning, and they may even call it a slip joint in, like Kershaw may call it that in their advertising material. But as far as I understand, part of the definition of a slip joint is that it's got this back spring. Maybe the leaf springs that you can see, hopefully you can see inside of there. There you go. You can see one right there by my finger. There's actually 2 leaf springs on either side of this with a detent ball on each. And that's what creates the half stop. That's what creates the detent when closed. All right. And of course, that's what creates the detent when open as well. So maybe this qualifies as a slip joint, but I'm a little hesitant to call it that. I feel like, I guess it's a double detent joint maybe, or something like that. Anyway, in terms of the way the knife feels, it's pretty smooth. It really does remind me of a fairly traditional slip joint. So I've got the Real Steel Luna here, and how you've got that, you can feel that little bit of pressure from the leaf spring. It really feels quite similar to that. I'm not going to get into walk and talk because I'm already having a hard time filming and talking, but it has that similar feel to a more traditional slip joint. It's not quite as snappy, but it's also not as drop shot. Like, it doesn't. If you've seen, there's a couple of ZT double detent joints, and they're kind of, they kind of flip out pretty quickly and they close. This doesn't feel like that. It feels more like a traditional knife. So I know I've said a lot to try and get that point across, but I just don't want anybody to be fooled thinking that if they've got the ZT, that little sort of flippy ZT, that it's going to feel the same. It really isn't. All right. Moving on from that, now that we kind of have a handle on how this knife works and kind of what it's all about, let's talk about this handle. So we've got this really nice micarta handle with this little decorative pivot point here. T8 Torx on the pivot screw, and I suppose these look like T6. I haven't checked, but we're going to guess at that. Lanyard hole here. Obviously, there's no locking mechanism. There's no clip. There's no pocket clip. This is sort of an in-pocket carry type of knife, and I think I've carried it that way and it works just fine because it's so light. The one thing I will say is there's a fair bit of flex here, and I don't love that. I guess a lot of people don't care. The Benchmade bug out has a lot of flex. Like you can, I can get this to move a bit, but I can't do what I could with a bug out. I can close the plastic. People don't care. They still love the knife. So, that completely puts me off, but this is certainly not that bad. I will say for the price point, it would have been nice to see these liners nested into this micarta. And perhaps if Kershaw is going to take my advice and do a larger version, call it the Federalist XL or something, they could put a lock on it and they could put nested liners, and who knows what they'd charge for it then, but hopefully it would be still affordable. By the way, the price point on this, and I guess we're still talking about the handle a little bit, but let me say it's comfortable. The micarta is grippy. There's not a lot to say about this handle. It's quite simple. FRN backspacer here. And so now we can kind of move on to a bit of a comparison discussion. And this is like around $100, which is not cheap, guys. There are some knives I have in my collection that sort of puts me in mind of. The Elementum is certainly one. The Civivi Conspirator as well. The Luna, which we had in here a second ago. All these are sort of, slim, lightweight, a little bit of a minimalist design aesthetic. And so, these kind of all put me in mind. Frankly, I'd prefer something that locks. I would over these two, and I prefer something a little bit bigger. I guess that's where the Cogent is more similar, although it's certainly the problem with the Cogent is it really goes into a different class. It's a little bit more substantial in all ways. The Elementum is very close, and so perhaps that would be a more appropriate comparison. If you had a clean design, very thin, lightweight knife, but it had a lock, the Elementum, and that hollow grind. Oh man, that hollow grind. Anyway, I'm getting a little off track there, guys, but I did want to throw some comparisons in just to kind of give you an idea of, what else is out there that might be similar, and also, where this lands in terms of value. And the other knives we looked at are all a little bit cheaper than this one. So that's the one, anyway, another hiccup in this whole design. So what are my overall thoughts, guys? This is a nice knife. I really like the look of this. It's very lightweight. It's decent steel for the price point. I wish it were a little heavier built, but it probably doesn't need to be, considering that it's sort of a lightweight, slim EDC option. That's, it's not meant to be skinning a bear or something like that. It's just meant to do some light cutting tasks and something to have in your pocket, for those easy, non-demanding type of stuff that we need to do with our knives. And for that, it's not bad. It's also nice to see Kershaw come with something a little bit different from their lineup. Although as I said, there would be some welcome changes here, but it's certainly not bad. Thanks a lot for watching. This came from White Mountain Knives. You can go over there and check for stock or anything else they may have. You can use my discount code SHARPSTUFF. That will save you 10% off. All right, thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for using those channel sponsors. It's a huge help. We will talk to you soon.